a workplace exodus is approaching, and it's coming fast. So, I recently did some calls with my Canadian clients, and I learned that close to 180,000 people have left the workforce. 180,000 people have left the workforce recently. Here's why. That data was only for Canada. If you go south of the border, the numbers, they increase a lot. Coming across the ocean to Europe, if you add all those numbers together, we're in the multiple millions. It's what people are calling the exodus, a mass employment exodus, and there's a reason for it. People aren't feeling engaged at work, appreciated at work, supported while they're doing what they do. COVID, anti-racism, change has brought about thinking. People are starting to wake up and realize, am I really in the right place? The toxicity that I've been allowing in my day-to-day, is it something that I can live with ongoing? It isn't. So this episode is all about the changes that are coming and coming very quickly for the majority of us. We can see it in business, even in sport, that employees are realizing tying themselves to one employer for decades might not work out for the best.
Welcome to The Forecast by Alex Ahom, connecting with people one story at a time. In this series, I'll be reviewing news the people in my network, are talking about. As a business founder, D&I consultant, and community builder, I know great content inspires. I'm going to react to today's story, and then Jas the AI will read it aloud to you. We have so much to cover, so please like, follow, share, and let's get started.
Welcome back. This is Series 4, Episode 2 of The Forecast. I'm Alex Ahom, and I like to make things personal. This story for me means a lot. People joining and leaving the workforce is something that many of us can relate to, especially now. So why is it happening? In the intro, I spoke a bit about the sports world. I'm going to get onto that, and I'm going to use Messi as a prime example. But before that, why is this happening? Why are so many people leaving the workforce? Well, companies are now asking people to return. Well, when I say ask, they're insisting people return to the workplace. This is after a year and a half, almost 2 years of being isolated, having to adapt, change the way that we work, change the location. So we've got used to working from home. We've found new solutions. Yes, we miss our colleagues. Some people may even miss the commute where they can read the newspaper or kick back. But for the most part, we've adapted. We've learned new skills. I know many people, probably like yourself, who have found many benefits from working from home. They've reconnected with their loved ones. Insisting people go back to the office may be a bit tone deaf, and especially at the speed at which many businesses expect this adaptation to happen. So yes, people are getting vaccinated. Yes, the workplace could be a safer space. or than it was before. But if people have found a balance that works for them with childcare, with their pets, they can go for runs and do their hobbies better after work because they don't have that hour commute. If people have found something that works for them, what will happen when we insist people go back to what they had before? A Bloomberg study this year revealed that 1 in 3 workers would seek a new job if asked to return full time. Another study conducted by Prudential Financial revealed that nearly half of current remote workers said if their current employer didn't continue to allow them to be remote, they would look for a company that did. Those are some very telling statistics. People want flexibility. They give their loyalty, they give their service, but one thing that keeps on coming up in surveys, in discussion, is flexibility. We've come so far, but not only to come this far. Now, the home isn't the answer for everything. Going to school, going to the office can be a safe space. Toxic situations can also be at home. They often are. Some people have poor Wi-Fi at home, or maybe not the online security they need for their job. As I said, we miss our colleagues as well. But, and there's a big but, loyalty. Where does it get us? What do we want out of our work? What is the end goal? A long time ago, it was about security, being able to merely feed our families. Things have changed. We want more than that now. Maybe we want a nicer apartment or house, a holiday, more holidays, a car, more cars, education. One thing that drives so many people is the desire to grow for ourselves and for our families. And in the past, loyalty could almost guarantee that. It doesn't anymore. And even worse, there are people who have been associated with one company or an industry for so long that their image is synonymous with it, with their job. They are what they do. And mental health comes into it. As you know, everybody, I speak a lot about diversity, inclusion, belonging, equality, equity, how people feel at work. Mental health is a huge part of that. Now, if you are seen as a teacher and then COVID comes along and shuts the school down or disrupts the learning to such an extent that you lose your identity, and it's happened. Many people have lost a sense of belonging or identity because they've lost their job, because they're having difficulties at work. People have the biggest challenge in living memory. They have to look in the mirror and decide who they are. What do they represent? Here is my Messi example. Now, if you're not into football, you may not be aware who Lionel Messi is. To many people, he is the greatest player in the sport's history. Now, footballers, soccer players, footballers get paid a hell of a lot of money. Messi was being paid in the region of 100 million euros per year until the year 2021, where his employees ran into some financial difficulties, some tax regulations and financial regulations came into play where they could no longer afford to pay him that much. So here's the example. Messi was seen as a player synonymous with his club Barcelona. It was almost inconceivable that he would never leave. Maybe Barcelona took advantage of that in a way. Of course, he's being paid a crazy amount of money. But Messi has spoken about how sometimes even if he wanted to leave, he wouldn't be sure how his friends and family or the world would perceive that. He's become, in a way, part of the furniture, property of the business. In the end, he's an employee, just like many of you. So the question is, how do we leave when we feel it's time? How do we leave if there is a certain level of toxicity? Can we leave? What if we leave and we can't find a new position? So my answer to that, before we get into today's article, is like Messi did. If you're able to accept a new challenge, if you're at that part of your career or your life where trying something different on the surface doesn't seem like it would be catastrophic, even though it's something that people would maybe not expect you to do, if you can do it, do it. Take a chance. I moved from the UK to Germany with my family. Of course, we had an opportunity. We had a job offer, so we moved there. And if we felt that it was, of course, the wrong thing to do, or if we felt that we had better options somewhere else, of course, we would have taken a different route. But the point is that I felt very connected to England and London, where I'm from. I was happy in London. I had a good job. There was no reason to leave other than I realized that maybe I was in my comfort zone. Maybe I wasn't learning as much as I thought. Maybe I could go somewhere and learn more. Yes, maybe I could go somewhere and it could be a disaster. But I felt that the kids could learn a new language. I could learn a new culture, learn so much and grow from other people. And here we are. It may not work out for Messi in Paris, where he's chosen to go to after leaving Barcelona, but he will learn something, a valuable lesson. We're stronger than we think we are. So once again, before Jas takes over, if you were able to accept an adventure and a risk, go for it, because you can learn so much more than you think. Here's Jas.
Quitting is having a moment. As the U.S. job market recovers from the pandemic, some workers are feeling more empowered to prioritize their own well-being above their employer. Workplace leaders began predicting a mass exodus in early 2021, with one survey finding that 1 in 4 workers plans to quit their job after the pandemic. And in what some are calling the Great Resignation, 4 million people quit their jobs in April, sparked by confidence they can find higher pay, more accommodating hours and better working conditions elsewhere. Other workers, feeling burned out living and working through a global health crisis, are finding that the shift in leverage is helping them put their mental health and well-being first. Finding a better fit after unemployment crunch after losing her retail job during the pandemic and being out of work for a year, Stephanie Becker was relieved to see an uptick in openings by spring 2021. She went on an interviewing spree in May and, by early June, started working at a dog boarding and day care facility in Phoenix. While she was eager to care for the animals, Becker, 21, says the work environment was untenable. Instead of working the day shift as previously discussed, Becker says she was assigned to work mornings that began at 4:30 a.m. She didn't get along with one of her managers. And when a family member back home on the East Coast became sick with COVID-19 recently, she was denied a weekend off in July to go care for him. Less than 2 weeks into the job, Becker says the mental stress was causing her to feel physically ill. Every day after work, she tells CNBC Make It, as soon as I got into the car, I wanted to break down and cry. I just didn't want to do it anymore. Waking up at 3 a.m. to go do something I didn't want to do, with people I didn't want to deal with, didn't make me feel good. After one particularly stressful shift, followed by a tearful evening at home, Becker says her boyfriend encouraged her to quit. He could cover the bills until she found new work, and she would use her side hustle selling artwork online to pay for groceries. The next day, she met with the manager she got along with, delivered the news and handed in her equipment. Becker's jobless period might not last long in today's job market. The day after she quit, she had 2 new job interviews lined up. She says finding a new job with health and dental benefits, which her previous employer didn't offer, is priority no. 1. And she feels better about taking more time to find a good match. I feel like I did rush in, she says of accepting her last job. It was my first job in a year because of COVID, and I was excited and wanted to start working. But this time, I'll go a little slower. She adds. If I could tell myself anything while I was trying to quit, it's this. If work is affecting you so much, it's not worth working yourself so hard and not feeling good that you aren't able to enjoy yourself at home. Trading the office for independence. Some employees have enjoyed the flexibility of working from home so much that, according to one survey, 39% of people said they would consider quitting if their employers weren't flexible about remote work moving forward. That's what Detroit resident Sarah Fleming, 25, did last week. She spent the pandemic working remotely designing training materials for a mortgage company and embraced the new level of work-life balance. She no longer spent 40 minutes commuting to the office each way, and she could use pockets of time between projects to take care of household tasks, leaving evenings to focus on her photography side business. Was surprised when, in April, she received notice that she was expected to be back in the office full-time a week later. The abrupt transition, from working autonomously to dealing with rush-hour traffic, crowded parking lots, abrasive coworkers and late nights, caused her to burn out. Over the span of a few weeks, I'd wake up dreading every single day, Fleming says. I'm a generally positive person and can find something to look forward to the next day. But when you're tired from the day before and wake up to a monotonous cycle of working for someone else until you fall asleep, it got draining. I couldn't do it anymore. All the while, Fleming says she was hearing from friends who were quitting their jobs, sometimes simply to take a break after a series of crises that tested the world. She began saving money and put in her 2 weeks' notice to coincide with and honor Juneteenth, the now federally recognized holiday celebrating the emancipation of African Americans from slavery in the U.S. I quit right before Juneteenth knowing the meaning of that holiday, and that quitting that job would give me a sense of freedom and purpose, Fleming says. While I was celebrating with friends that weekend, I knew that come Monday, I wouldn't have to clock into a workplace where I'm not appreciated as an employee. Instead of finding a new job, Fleming is going into photography full-time. I'd rather bet on myself than stay somewhere and be unhappy. She says what some employers don't realize about the so-called Great Resignation is that people do want to work, but they're also burned out and need more workplace support. Aside from COVID, jobs are requiring a lot of people, and there needs to be a shift, Fleming says. The 9-to-5 workday isn't realistic. I think having more time at home made a lot of people realize that and prioritize their own lives and mental health. Fleming hopes other people discouraged at work can use this moment to improve their situations, whether that's discussing better terms with a manager, or finding something better on their way out. It was inspiration from others making the jump that 100% helped push this baby bird off the branch, she says. Trust your gut.
That was Jas, with an article I read recently about backing yourself and the importance of quitting toxic work environments. Now I want to say something very important. I understand Messi is extremely privileged, but I'm also cognizant that even I have privileges. It's a privilege to have a job. It's a privilege to have a wife that has an amazing offer. And it's a privilege that we were able to make a decision knowing that the chances of complete catastrophic failure was unlikely. And even if there was to be some difficulties that we didn't want to face, that we could probably find our way home safely. I know some people are not in that situation. I have family and friends who have been in that situation, or one or two that are still in precarious situations. Both of my family, my mother and father, were immigrants, and they had challenges that I could never imagine. So I am aware that there are people who would listen or could be listening who don't find it that easy to make changes in their work. But on the other hand, we do have a responsibility to maintain. We have a responsibility to look after ourselves and our mental health. And there are way too many people who just don't feel right in where they are, in what they're doing. So again, I encourage anybody, share your story, speak to me, reach out to me. Let's hop on a call. Let's do a podcast together. I want to know, and I think other people need to know about stories where there are difficulties around this. But harping back to Messi and closing out this episode, can we take chances, calculated risks? Can we do maybe what's best for our families, what's best for our futures? Can we step outside of our comfort zone? Thanks for listening. And if you're looking for a new challenge, a new job, a new experience, or just something different, you are not alone. The whole reason I started this podcast was I am fully aware of the power of community, the power of friendship, the power of networking, the power of mentorship. Thanks for listening. I have been Alex Ahom. This is The Forecast, and I will speak to you next time.